Shalom Israel. I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rekah Kadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles in Israel who rule and teach well, to the Akims, to the Iwis and Bywis, and those pushing videos in truth and sincerity, and the brothers and sisters in the truth. Now this is just a quick edification on Matthew 28 and 19, for those who may be coming in new into the truth. Because this verse here, I'll read it first. It says, Matthew 28 and 19, Go ye therefore and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Now when we're in the world, the understanding that we're given is that Yahushua is telling us that we should go and teach all nations. But this, what he's actually telling us, is that we should go to our people that's scattered in these nations. And one of the way you understand that is by the prophecies that's written about the Israelites in the scriptures. Now this is Luke chapter 21 and verse 20. Now this is Yahushua giving a prophecy. It says, And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, know then that the desolation thereof is nigh. Now this is going into 70 AD when the Romans overthrew Jerusalem. So Yahushua was letting us know what was going to happen. He said, Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter therein too. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. Now there were things that were written in the scriptures that would happen to the Israelites that must be fulfilled. And one of those things is going to mention here. It says, verse 24, And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captives into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles, until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So, in Matthew 28, where he was telling us that we should go and teach all nations, that's because when we understand the prophecies are letting us know that we'll be led away captives into all nations. Now to expand on that, this is Deuteronomy chapter 4 verse 27. And the Lord shall scatter you among the nations, and ye shall be left few in number among the heathen, whether the Lord shall lead you. So that's just one prophecy letting us know that we'll be scattered amongst the nation. Now this is also in the curses that will be scattered amongst the nations. Yeah. This is Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 64. It says, So for us breaking the curses, for us breaking the covenant, one of the curses that will befall us is Deuteronomy 28 and 64. And the Lord shall scatter you among all people. Among all people is the same as saying among the nations. So it says, And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. So even by the time we was in the New Testament times, we'd been through various captivities, which saw us being scattered amongst the nations. So this is why when we read in Acts chapter 2 verse 5, it says, And there were dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, devout men, out of every nation under heaven. So one of the things we had to do was to go to Jerusalem to celebrate Pentecost. And it says that there was Jews, devout men, out of every nation. When we jump down to verse, start 8, it says, And how hear we every man in our own tongue wherein we were born, Parthians and Medes and Elamites, and the dwellers in Mesopotamia, in Judea, Cappadocia, in Pontus and Asia. And it goes on, lists a number of places where these Jews came from. Now, this is something which the disciples them also knew. You know what? Let me get this. This is James chapter 1. This is why when we read James, it says, James 1 and 1, James, a servant of the Most High, and of the Lord Yahushua Mashiach, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greetings. And why were we scattered? When we read the curses in Deuteronomy chapter 4:27, the Lord said that He will scatter us amongst the nations. And like we read in Deuteronomy 28 and 64, we were going to be scattered amongst the people. And like Yahushua prophesied in Luke 21 and 24, that we will fall by the edge of the sword and shall be led away captives into all nations. And if we look at our people today, we're scattered into all nations. So for us to get the word to our people, we have to do what He said here. Go in Matthew 28 and 19, go ye therefore and teach all nations. We're not teaching the other nations, but we're actually teaching our people that's amongst these nations. This is why it says, go ye therefore and teach all nations. Now, whilst we're amongst these nations, we may end up calling ourselves other names because either we were born amongst these nations or we've actually gone to these nations to dwell there. Now, when we look at Acts chapter 2 again, these brothers, these Jews that came to Jerusalem to keep Pentecost, some of them were probably born in the lands that we mentioned, which were Parthians, Medes and Elamites, and some would have probably migrated there to live in those lands. Yeah, and our people, what would happen at times, you know, will be named after the places that we were born or where we dwell. Like today we may call ourselves Jamaican, British, African American, Mexican, etc. But that doesn't mean that that's who we are. We're just named after the areas that we lived or that we dwell. And there's instances when we read Genesis chapter 25 and verse 20, it says, and Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah to wife, the daughter of Bethuel the Syrian of Pandanaram, the sister of Laban the Syrian. Now, my question is, was Laban a Syrian? And was his dad a Syrian? Which means Rebekah herself would be a Syrian. Now, this is Genesis. Ooh. Salakia. This is 22. This is Genesis chapter 22. Because we have to remember, it says here, Rebekah to wife, the daughter of Bethuel the Syrian, says the sister of Laban the Syrian. So were they Syrians? This is Genesis 22 and verse 23, and it says, and Bethuel begat Rebekah. These 8 Milcah did bear to Nahor, Abraham's brother. So Bethuel's dad was Nahor, Abraham's brother. We know that Abraham was not a Syrian, and his brother was not a Syrian. Let me quickly get this. And they both had the same dad. Just clarify that a second. This is Genesis chapter 11 verse 26. Actually, I'll start at 25. And Nahor lived after he begat Terah 119 years, and he begat sons and daughters. And Terah lived 70 years and begat Abram, Nahor, and Aaron. So we see here, Genesis 22 and 23, and Bethuel begat Rebekah. These 8 Milcah did bear to Nahor, Abraham's brother. And this is what we're reading about here in Genesis 11, 26. And Terah lived 70 years and begot Abram, Nahor, and Aaron. And Nahor was Bethuel's dad. But in Genesis 25 and 20, Bethuel was referred to as a Syrian. And Laban, his son, was referred to as a Syrian. But were they Syrians? No, because Abraham wasn't a Syrian. Yeah, these were the areas that they dwelt. Hence the reason they were called Syrian. So when we read the scriptures, sometimes our people will be named after the lands that they dwelt or where they were born. So when Yahushua said in Matthew 28:19, "Go ye therefore and teach all nations," he weren't actually telling us to teach these other nations, but to teach our people that was scattered amongst these nations. And there's many scriptures in the Bible which proves that we were scattered amongst them. And these are things we can't ignore. Because the prophecy is, let me go back here. This is Acts again. Acts chapter 2. And you see all these areas that our people were Parthians, Medes, Elamites, Mesopotamia, Judea, Cappadocia, Egypt, Libya. Now the prophecy says, as much as we will be scattered, let's see where we will be gathered from. This is Isaiah 11:11. "And it shall come to pass in that day, that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria, from Egypt, from Pathros, and from Cush, and from Elam, and from Shinar, and from Amath, and from the islands of the sea," meaning all nations. Yes, so the prophecy says that we'll be scattered amongst the nations. The prophecy also said that we'll be gathered from all these nations. This is why Yahushua said, "Go ye therefore and teach all nations," because our people are scattered amongst them. So this is just some understanding for those who may be new in the truth. There's a lot of scriptures which we may come across, and the understanding that is given in religion sorts of contradicts what we teach. But you'll see that everything we teach flows with the scriptures. For Yahushua to say, "Go ye and teach all nations," and he wasn't speaking about his own people, why would he then tell the 12, this is Matthew 10 and 5, "These 12 Yahushua sent forth and commanded them, saying, Go not into the way of the Gentiles, and into any cities of the Samaritans enter ye not, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." It'd be kind of pointless him saying this, and then saying in another breath, "Go and teach all nations." That's a contradiction. So the reason why he's saying, "Go and teach all nations," is because our people were scattered amongst them. There's many scriptures to prove that. And with that understanding, Matthew 10 and 5 does not contradict. Everything flows in sync. So with that, I hope you can get some edification. We'll give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakah Kadash, Kwam Yasha'Allah.